Hey there, math students. Welcome to Math Task 57A, writing slope-intercept form equations. So, right off the bat, slope-intercept form is this y equals mx plus b. Y and x are your variables. M stands for your slope. B stands for your y-intercept. That's the point on the graph where the line hits the y-axis. So right there. So B is where you begin, where you start, right? It's your starting point. And M is how you move, rise over run. So when y equals 1/3 x plus 2, you begin at 2 right here, and then you rise 1 and run 3 to the right. So when asked to graph an equation, you need to know at least two things. You need to know your slope, and you need to know your y-intercept. And so a slope-intercept form equation is like a set of instructions on how to build a line, right? This tells you where to begin, and this tells you how to move from that point of beginning. Now, if it's a whole number, you just need to remember that your rise over run will be 3 over 1. All right? So, identify the slope and y-intercept of each equation. Y equals 2x plus 5. The slope is 2, and the y-intercept is 0, 5. That's where you begin, right? Something to remember for your slope is you're going to write it as a fraction. So 2 over 1 or negative 2 over negative 1. Because remember, negative divided by negative is a positive. So in y equals negative 3x plus 6, your slope is negative 3, which means you could write negative 3 over 1 or 3 over negative 1. And your y-intercept is 6, so you're starting at point 0, 6. Let's go down to another problem. You'll do this one at first. Notice you have the y-intercept coming first, so 0, negative 7. And then you have your slope of 5, so that's 5 over 1 or negative 5 over negative 1. Let's take a look at this one. Negative 8 minus 1/2 x, that's plus negative 1/2 x, that's fine. So we have our slope as negative 1/2, which can be negative 1 over positive 2 or 1 over negative 2. And your y-intercept in this case is 0, negative 8. Now, when you have a variable by itself, remember it has a coefficient of 1, so your slope here is just 1, which you can write as 1 over 1 or negative 1 over negative 1. They usually don't write 1x, they just write x. And the y-intercept in this case is 0, 3. You take the rest of those. Now, special cases. You'll notice y equals 2x. It doesn't have a y-intercept, it looks like, right? So your slope here is 2, which is 2 over 1 or negative 2 over negative 1. But since there is no y-intercept, that means you are starting from the origin, 0, 0. Now, in this problem right here, y equals negative 7, you don't have an x, right? So that is your y-intercept, 0, negative 7. And because there is no x, you have a 0 slope, all right? So that means you start at 0 over 1 or 0, negative 1, meaning you can start at 0 and move to the right one, or start at 0 and move to the left one. You'd be starting at negative 7. So this graph would look like here. Negative 7 would be your point there, and then you just move to the right one every single time, or move to the left one, and you'd get this horizontal line, a 0 slope at the bottom. And now finally, x equals 0. I don't have a y value, right? So I have no y-intercept. And when x equals 8, there's no slope there either, so I have an undefined slope. So think about this one. If I have something at x equals 8, 8 would probably be like all the way over here, that dot right there. And now I have no y-intercept, so I can move up 1 or down 1, and I have these vertical lines. So if you have a y equals a number, that's going to be a 0 slope, and x equals a number, that's going to be an undefined slope. Now we're going to do the opposite. You're going to write an equation given the slope and the y-intercept. So if m equals 4 and b equals 2, your equation is y equals 4x plus 2. If m just equals negative 1 here, your equation is y equals negative 1x, or more likely, y equals just negative x. Now, m equals 3/4, b equals 0. Y equals 3/4 x plus 0, or usually just 3/4 x, and they wouldn't include the 0. All right. And on the back side, you are now going to go ahead and use a graph to say, all right, what's your slope in y-intercept? So where do you start? You start at the point 0, 1. So anything that doesn't have a positive 1 is out. Later. This is also a negative sloping graph, right? So if I'm starting at that point right here, how do I get to another point? Well, I move down 1, down -1, and right 1. So my slope is -1 over 1. Right? So basically negative x, right? So my answer here is D, because that was -2x. Let's try one more. Number 12. Always ask, where do you start? Okay, I start right there. So I start at 0, -1. So anything that doesn't have -1 is out. Goodbye A and B. And then how do I move? Well, from go to this point to another point here, I go up 2, right 1. So my slope is 2 over 1. So 2x. Right? So y equals 2x minus 1. That would be D. Not negative 2x. And think about this. This is a positive sloping line, right? If I go left to right, I go up. Right? So now you're going to get a whole bunch of practice on your own.